hey, Stephen, we're really grateful to have you here. For anyone that's not familiar with you, why don't you just tell everyone a little bit about who you are and what you've been doing and what you're going to talk to us about today?
So my name's Stephen Patzer. I'm based here in New York City. I'm the author of Six Figure Secrets. It's a book on taking just an idea and building it into a real brand and credible entity. And I got the idea for that years ago when people were just asking me how I did it. And instead of telling everybody individually, I figured I'd just write a book on it. And I'm also the radio show host of Six Figure Secrets on 94.3 in Manhattan, New York, and the host of Six Figure Secrets podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, and TuneIn Radio.
So you're in a few different places.
Yeah, I have an outreach in a lot of different areas.
I think that was a smart plan rather than trying to tell people one at a time. So one of the things you do like to focus on is building a brand, building a personal brand, building an image. And I think that's one thing a lot of people are missing. Like I know actually after my first business, I realized that was kind of important. I started buying like style books and I was like, let me just kind of get a gist of, basics that I might need to be familiar with. So when it comes to personal image and branding, as a business owner, where do you think you need to start? Like what's the first thing that someone needs to consider when they're trying to figure out how to do that?
It starts with personal image and then it leads into the brand. A lot of people start the opposite. Oh, well, I can make a logo first and then a website. But it's really, you are the face of your business in the beginning. You got to look good, you got to sound good, and you got to have advocates for you. And that leads into credibility for your entity and your brand. So it starts there, and it's a funny story on how I got started in brands, and this really can add some value to anybody listening. I started out in high school where I would just wear a suit every day, and I couldn't really afford a suit at the time. And my mom told me, Steve, if you want to wear a suit every day, when you get a job and you move out, you can afford to do so. So I found these thrift stores and these Salvation Army shops, and I bought these suits, and I wore them to high school every day. And people said, wow, Steven's dressing sharp. And I would watch these YouTube videos on how to do it better. And all of a sudden, people would say, well, Steven knows what he's talking about. He's reading the Wall Street Journal every day and he's wearing a suit. And it's funny, I didn't really know what I was talking about, but I'll give you a Steve Jobs quote. The smallest company in the world can look like the largest company in the world on the internet. And I think the same, and that has to do with a lot of the way you present yourself. If you make a website and it looks a lot greater than everybody else's, people are going to stay on it more and they're going to talk about it more. So it has a lot to do with what you're giving off and what people are talking about you. A big quote I heard, I don't know who said it, it is, success is defined by others' opinions of you. Now, a lot of people just say, well, no way, I don't care what he or she said. Why does that bother me? It shouldn't. Well, in fact, in this competitive marketplace, it very much should. You should be trying to please that customer who isn't entirely honest with their review, even though they're not entirely honest with it, which is the inconvenient truth for many.
Yeah, well, I think that's that little part of it's a mistake a lot of people make. There's that Hug Your Haters book that came out. I don't know if you read it, but they talk about how people tend to avoid people that leave less than honest reviews or negative reviews, and that actually by dealing with them and talking to them, and even if all you do is address it, that image of a person that wants to solve problems as a business owner will improve your advocacy like 40% or something, pretty significant. So to your point, even just having that image of, hey, I want to fix it, even if we didn't really screw up, we're still trying to fix it for you anyway, can give you a lot of positive benefits.
That's right. I'm going to tell you a story that might have some people listening rolling on, did you really do that? And it's a true story. When my book came out, it's all about reviews on Amazon. You're constantly asking the people who bought it, leave a review, please. Just make it honest. If you write a good book, it's going to be a good review. So, I figured I had a good book at this point, and I was getting 5-star reviews left and right. This is fantastic. And then I see my first 1-star review. I said, wait a minute, something's not right here. So I click on the review. It had the person's name on the review. It didn't just say Amazon customer, but it also said that it wasn't a verified purchase, meaning the person never actually bought the book. And at this point, the book was only out a week, so I said to myself, there's no way you could have received it and read it by this point, other than Amazon. I don't sell it personally. I have a contract with Amazon that says otherwise. So this was falsified. I copied the name, I pasted it into Facebook, and it was a mutual friend of somebody who knew me. So I add them on Facebook. And they accept my request. That's great. And turns out they were a young entrepreneur, a young girl, and she would sell these little pins. She was a little artist, and I bought 10 of her pins that day. And I actually saw her in the street 2 weeks later, and she didn't send my pins out yet. And she saw me. She says, "Wait, you're Steven?" I said, "Yes. I ordered pins from you. I really like what you're doing." So she gave me the pins and she saved on the postage, and I had just made a friend. And that review never got removed. Nevertheless, I got a new advocate. For whatever reason, she didn't like me. Now she does. And she turned out to be a journalist later on, and now is trying to cover things I do. You'd never know which direction that took. That could have been a complete waste of time and a waste of $10. But it's stories like that make personal brands grow.
Well, and I think, to your point, I forget the author, but the 40 whatever rules of power, and he talks about how enemies actually can become much better advocates for you than your friends a lot of times. Because if you can turn an enemy around, or someone that's, hurt you or done wrong by you, they almost feel obligated now because you've given them another chance to prove themselves to you. So they're actually better advocates a lot of times if you can make that happen than the people that were friends or liked you all along, who don't feel like they owe you anything. So I think there's some validity to that.
I could definitely agree with that. If they're willing to go out of their way to leave a negative review, they're willing to go out of their way to tell their friend about you as well. And it could be, it's up to you, positive or negative, depending on how you push it. You got to control the image at the end of the day for your brand. And that leads me to the next thing I wanted to talk about, which is the internet. I'm just going to use myself as an example. I'm not even going to bring my clients into this, but let's just talk about Stephen Patzer on Google. I dominate the first 2 pages of the search results, whether it's my personal website that ranks #1, my LinkedIn that's maxed out, my website, my company that comes up to the right of Google. It's all about controlling the image of what people are going to see at the end of the day. And if you can dominate the top 30 Google images, which is not difficult to do, in the first 2 pages of search results, people are going to think highly of you, and they're going to offer you interview opportunities like this one. I don't know how you guys found me, but I mean, just saying, you know. Yeah, but that's just how it works in the industry.
So let me ask you a question then. Consistency, like you talked about, you wear a suit every day. You mentioned Steve Jobs, who wore the same clothes every day. I know that is a thing. They talk about a lot of successful people basically have the same wardrobe that they wear every day. I know someone in our marketing realm, Ryan Dice, a digital marketer, he wears the same white shirt, dark sport coat every day. And he's told me why. We've had discussions about that. Do you feel that you always need to have almost the same appearance personally for your personal brand?
Yeah, absolutely, because it's all about like this deep ingrained nature in people of predictability. They want to be able to predict you're going to follow through on your commitments. And if you can follow through to as simple as looking good every day, or coming in 4 days of the week and then 1 day in sweatpants, then they can predict that, hey, you might be somebody who keeps their word. Just at the very basic level. And then even deeper, you wouldn't believe the opportunities that I've gotten from just wearing a suit. I wrote about it in my book. One of the craziest stories, I'm in the airport coming back from Poland, Lot Airlines, back to New York. And there's the area where the VIPs sit. I don't have a VIP card at that time. Now I do, and I haven't even used it yet, to be honest with you. I've had it for a year. But I have a suit on, and I have a Gucci bag I got on eBay at like 1/10 of its original price. And I go over to the guy, and I'm like, and I just pretty much walk through. I didn't even have to, I pulled my ticket out and I put it back in my bag before he got to see anything. I just wanted to see if it was going to work. I was a young kid at the time, and it could have just backfired tremendously. And just the way I looked, he really believed I belonged there. And that's just one story, and it's scratching the surface in regards to personal image on how far you can get. And it can take you that way in business. I could talk about Donald Trump, and I hate to bring it up because of the political turmoil that's going on right now. But in one of his books, I never actually read it. I heard it from somebody, and then I fact checked it when I wrote my book. Was he was trying to close a really big real estate deal, and the first thing he did was come into the real estate office with like 5 or 6 people he had hired to look good and stand behind him and take notes and whisper in his ear. And at this table, seemingly nobody, he was a nobody at the time, they took him very seriously. And he cut the deal. I don't know how truthful that is, knowing Donald Trump's stance on things, but I think there's some truth to it, regardless.
No, I could see that being true. If you read a lot of influence books, also, going back to some of those, a lot of it's get people to look at you, get people to talk about you, even if it's negative sometimes. If you're relevant and you're current, then that matters. So, I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if that was a technique that he employed or something like that makes sense. So, on the point of politics, Donald Trump, with your image, polarize or don't polarize? Do we try to please the masses, or are we okay with being who we are and getting our advocates that really like us?
It depends what your industry is. That is completely contingent on that. I'm going to give you an example of a former client of mine, Kobe Pearson. He's a YouTube celebrity, 3 million subscribers, and he did some pretty unethical or questionable things on YouTube to gain popularity. Nevertheless, he has a fleet of supercars now, all wrapped in gold, totaling $2.5 million. He's 21 years old. Would you do that? Oh, well, that depends on you. So he was able to go into low-income neighborhoods along with other pranksters and provoke the locals. They're already on edge. Poor people that have to, grow up like that. It's not their fault, and they're taking advantage of the situation. A lot of questionable things in the media about it. And then he had his breakthrough when he posted a video that got 100 million views in 24 hours. Just tricking all of the mass media. CNN covered it, Forbes covered it, everybody covered it in 24 hours, and it completely was trickery. So his image would be doing that. My image would be to gain new clients is looking good, sounding good, and obviously performance and a track record. So it depends on your industry. I looked at Lil Wayne yesterday on the award show. And this guy's like 50 years old or something. I don't even know. He's like older, and he's dressed like some kids you might find in high school. So, I mean, me personally, I might do that on the weekends, but when it comes down to business, I couldn't possibly wear sweatpants or a sweatshirt.
Okay, so you think if you're in a more conservative industry, stay conservative. You can polarize to some extent, but if you're not a conservative industry, stand out, be your person. Is that basically the gist of it?
Yeah, it's very straightforward. Business is a lot more action than thinking. Don't try to overthink this stuff. That looking good is looking good, sounding good is sounding good. It can all be approved upon. Just take diligent action around what you've done.
Perfect. Okay, so back to online branding. You touched on that a little bit. Where would you start? You're a business owner. You've been in business 30 years. This online stuff, your grandkids do it. You kind of understand Google. You don't know what to do. You don't know who to trust to hire to do it because there's all sorts of options out there. What do you think is most important, and where do you start?
I would just say list yourself on Google right off the bat. All the locals are going to be able to see you when they research things and keywords for things in your area. It's free to do. They send you a postcard in the mail with a pin on it, and you push it into Google, and now you're verified on Google. You can upload pictures. You're completely controlling the image of how you look on the internet, and it's so easy to do. It's just a simple Google search away. That would be the first thing to do. I think the second thing is, and I hate to say this, but join a Wix website or something, or a Squarespace. And I'm adamantly against the Squarespace and Wix platforms unless you're really out of touch with the internet. But you really want to have something at least like a WordPress, because you can really control everything you do, the SEO benefits, really down to the T. Whereas Squarespace and other places, they'll overcharge you and you'll get less. But it's for people that aren't too familiar with the internet. So you can drag and drop a decently looking website in probably half an hour. So I'd say definitely get that out there, because you got to get in the search rankings and the running for the internet in that respect. So that would be two major things you can do. You got to have a website. That's the first chapter of my book. I gave a talk in Queens a couple months ago, 540 students, and I'm up there on the stage, and I'm talking about why everybody in the audience should have a website. Now you're probably thinking to yourself, "What, are you kidding me? I'm going to be a nurse. Why do I need a website?" And that question came up. A girl said she's going to be a police officer, all the way in the back, and she's telling me this question: why do I need a website? And it just comes down to professionalism and opportunity. So I'll give you an example of Rochelle Boone. She's a news anchor from New York 1 in Queens, and she was on my radio show, and I said that statement that everybody should have a website, and she kind of laughed at me. She said, "Steve, I'm a professional already. I'm on the news every day. I don't need to have a website. Let's be honest here." And this is a true story. 4 months later, she calls me out of nowhere. I haven't heard from her for 4 months. This is a news anchor, very popular in New York. And she says, "Steven, I need a website." I said, "Why do you need a website all of a sudden? You literally turned me down on my radio show. I have the recording of it." And she said, "Because a coworker of mine just got promoted because she had a website. And she had some of the stories she covered on there, and it was more about her. And when the executives up at New York 1 wanted to research her, there was something to read." And the same thing goes for a police officer or a nurse. You know, the promotions are available and the opportunities are available and the BOD seats are available if there's enough on you that looks good out there. That's just one example of probably 150 I could give you, but keep it short for that. Yeah.
No, I think that's absolutely fair and it's relevant. And the other side is you can control your brand. You know, something unfortunate happens, if something bad happens, like you said, if you're staying on and you can push yourself to the top of the search results still. As an example, I remember there was an MMA school actually that had a fighter that assaulted someone. And it was shady. Again, talking about your friend with the YouTube, but what they ended up doing is actually they bought the URL for the name of their brand and assault. And they showed up at the top of all these people trying to find out what had happened and turned it into a self-defense course that they were selling online. So all these people that were going there to find out about this MMA fighter that had assaulted somebody, I think it was a girl actually, like a guy had assaulted a girl, ended up seeing all these ads for like self-defense classes for women instead, and they completely did this shady thing and turned it around. But, I mean, you have that opportunity. So back to the website for brand, are resumes still relevant?
Online resumes are relevant. My website is nothing more. It started out as an online resume in 2013. I had a link to download my resume on my website because you never knew where you were going to be, where you needed to print a resume quickly, and you don't always have one on you. So it's funny you asked that. Now it's a full-fledged place where you can see the publicity I've got. You can get a copy of my book. You can see my clients, my testimonials. There's references. There are tools. There's a detailed blog that I'm getting so many unique visitors to every day. It's so, yeah, resumes are irrelevant, but in the online sense, you should have a regular resume, of course. I say a 9 to 5 job is still relevant. You should have one as a backup until you can fully commit yourself to your business. But you never be too good for a job and always have a resume, yeah.
Well, so there's another good point. I don't think you promote having a job as a general rule. So where do you draw that line between who should have a job and who should be starting their own business or owning their own business? Should everyone be having some sort of their own business? Is like a Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Poor Dad thing where everyone should have at least something on the side? Is that your belief? Or do you think some people are perfectly fine with a 9 to 5 forever?
You can become rich from a 9 to 5 job. Don't let that fool you. If you are diligent around your money and you understand the financial markets, and I'm not just talking stocks and bonds here, I'm way past that already. You can very well become rich from a $15 an hour job. Don't kid yourself. That combined with a business that you take seriously, you can become rich a lot sooner. So it depends on your values and how far you want to extend yourself. I know people that took jobs that only pay $40,000 a year because they want to spend time with their kids. Or I know people that don't really care so much for their kids and would take a $125,000 job. It all comes down to the line and if you're willing to cross it or not. And it's not a bad thing if you cross the line. That's your personal preference. If there are consequences or if there are no consequences, you'll deal with them later. It's just you need to understand what you're willing to do for success at the end of the day, or your definition of it at least.
Fair enough. There's always a price for everything, so it's, what's the price you want to pay. Okay, so your 6 steps you reference. One of the last ones was social intelligence. Let's go again to your average business owner that's not a millennial or younger, that's still trying to kind of figure that out. Where do they start? How do you get a little smarter when it comes to social networking, when it comes to this online perception stuff that all they know is that their kids on Snapchat too much and that, they don't know what a whole lot else.
Right. And just to touch on Snapchat for a second, just for bragging rights. 3 months ago, or no, it was actually a year ago, I said Snapchat's going under and everybody laughed at me. Even Gary Vee laughed at me. And we're Snapchat now. Yeah, they're about to go public, but nobody uses it anymore.
Well, they're having problems. I mean, they admitted they missed earnings by a lot, right? I think it just came out that they took a pretty big hit. They're saying it's not an issue, but I'm pretty sure when that came out, they missed revenue by quite a bit. So you can give yourself a pat on the back.
Knowing the people at NASDAQ, because I did a talk there, they're going to still make them go public for the money. The underwriting is just too good to pass up. But personal image, social intelligence. I'm going to give away a secret I never talked about in my book because I didn't want people to know about this. It was my little secret, and I don't even think I'm going to talk about it in the next book. I think this is an exclusive here. I got so famous on Instagram, and I get like 30 messages a day because of something that doesn't exist anymore. All of these algorithms, these social media algorithms, starting with Mass Planner, Instagress, Follow Liker, and they do a lot more than follow unfollow people in your related industry. They do the auto comment, they do the auto like, they do the auto direct message, they do the auto post. And Instagram just took it down 3 weeks ago. And I've been able to get so much notoriety from that and translate it over to Twitter and translate it over to Facebook and translate it into book sales. And now there's only one company on the market that does it, and I know the founder of it. And I've been using it for 2 weeks now. It's called Viral Beast Media. You can't even Google it. It's like an invite-only sort of deal, where if you post something on this software, you will be automatically pushed to the top posts on Instagram. So you could have 30 followers, don't matter. You will be on the top hashtags for Instagram, and I mean, I've been using it, and I've been using things like it, and I think if you can just go out of your way and find those, you can be a social media rock star at 55 years old. It just doesn't matter where you come from, what you've done in your life. But the social media algorithms have greatly contributed to the success I've had now.
Okay, so learn what the relevant algorithms are, learn basically what's going on now, and try and leverage it as best you can.
Yeah, and they're very straightforward. It's as simple as clicking on or off. Yeah. It's not, you don't need to know code for this. It's very easy, and it's inexpensive, $10 a month or $49 a month. The different platforms there. But if you can find the up and coming ones that aren't getting sued by Instagram because they're using their API, yeah, then I think you've got something great going for yourself.
Okay, well, I think that leads into another good question: automation. We're seeing a lot now with CRMs and Infusionsoft and Entreports and HubSpots. These softwares out there that if you do the work up front, they can automate a lot. Like you're saying, they can automatically send out emails and messages and follow-ups. Should every business be doing this? How important is it that they're doing it? What are your opinions if they should be doing it?
Yeah, it's important. When my book came out, I wanted to get real book reviews, not like the ones where you buy it and then leave a review, like actual reviewers that do this for a living to review it. So I bought a list online for like $15 of the top 2,000 book reviewers or something. And it had their emails, their phone numbers, everything. Now, how was I going to reach out to 2,000 book reviewers? It just wasn't happening. So I went through the list. I said, okay, well, we'll bring some interns in. For like 12 weeks, we had interns here emailing these people, and it worked. Very slow. And then I said to myself, I should really be automating this. And we started to do it, and we got, and it didn't work as well as the interns did because it wasn't as genuine. The interns were able to go to the respective book reviewers' website and pull one or two facts and just drop it into the template we had. But nevertheless, it's like a value to time, sort of deal, where I was buying them pizza every week, these interns, and they were learning a lot about the industry, but just having them there and having myself there to oversee them was a time compromise. So I think automation is important. It's not so easy to do, though. You have all these platforms that do it, but it's not as easy as people would like to think. You got to have a good copywriter, things like that. There's a lot of details and variables involved.
Of course, yeah. And there's a learning curve of the software besides the copy, everything else. And I'm pretty sure Britt just considered you a backup job because you're paying pizza. So watch out. That's about all it takes to steal her. So be aware. All right. So I think we have probably time for one last question. So what's the one thing in 2017 every business owner needs to know in your opinion?
Give me a minute to think about that one. I want to make it good. No. The one thing. All right. And this is going to seem a little straightforward, but you got to stay on top of it. The one thing I didn't expect to really work for me was a blog. You write a couple articles up and you expect it to do nothing. Maybe your friends and family will read them, right? But on WordPress, it gives you, there's a plugin called Yoast SEO, and combined with your articles, you can put in the keywords for these articles, and some of my articles are popping up number one on Google for things like what makes an entrepreneur unique or how to turn networking into success. I'm just reading these right off my website, and it drives traffic. Oh boy, does it drive traffic. I thought I'd just be another business blog out there, but it added to my credibility and my brand so much. To have a blog that I stayed on top of. And when it came time that I didn't even have like enough of persistence to keep writing blog posts, I would hire people who were experts in the industry to write about this stuff, and I'd combine my own knowledge with it, and you'd pump out posts. Just keep pumping out posts. There's no secret to it. So I would say go ahead, create a blog in 2017. You got to have a voice on where you stand on certain things, and this is the way to do it without getting political. You're going to end up giving back to your community by writing a blog. People are going to be growing because of you, and it might not be so evident at first, but a year later when somebody reaches out to you on Instagram and say, I just lost my job and you've kept me going, it makes all the difference. And that translates to real brand loyalty. And I've gotten messages like that all the time. They're not as frequent as the messages I just get every day, but they happen, and they happen often.
Well, and a message like that has a big impact. It doesn't need to happen every day. It's one of those things.
Yeah.
Obviously, standard
exactly.
It's worth it.
Yeah.
I know we're going the way of video blogs now. Podcasts are kind of becoming. Every time I think they're going to go away, they become a thing again. Do you think the media matters for the blog? You just need to have a voice out there consistently.
Media as in
medium,
video.
Like podcast versus video blog versus written blog versus.
Yeah, an entire chapter of my book is all about creative content. Starting with your infographics and your vlogs and your written content and your maybe a book or your podcast. Everything is valuable. You're building an audience in 20 different places. My mom always said, Steven, stick to one thing. I said, how could I? There's all these great platforms I can use. And, she might be right. I might have a bigger audience on one platform if I did it as consistent. But if I have 25, I think it just bumps my credibility up, and the risk to reward sort of deal plays out very nicely.
But you don't see one head and shoulders above the rest. Just whatever works for you to be consistent, put your voice out there.
I would say Instagram. There's all these. All right, I'm just gonna say that magazines and online advertisers are pulling their money, and they're putting it into people like me and other people with very targeted followings. Because we have a real voice. We're not a brand like Coca-Cola posting something. This is like really reaching your audience. You give me $500 instead of giving it to a website to run your ad for a week. You probably wouldn't even get that long out of me, but you'd get conversions. I tell you that much. And it's because of that personalized connection Instagram and sort of Twitter can give to those brands and those companies. So I would say take those seriously. It's an additional source of income. Why not? It pays my car insurance.
There you go. Okay, so for the people that have been watching that want to keep following you, where would you prefer them to go?
They can visit StevenPatzer.com. All my social media links are there, or they can reach out to me at info@StevenPatzer.com, and I'll be happy to answer your questions. And my famous saying, have a dream and make it happen.
And when's your new book expected to come out?
Well, I just started writing it, so it's going to be at least a year and a half until it gets past the publishing stages and the copy editing and stuff.
All right, so you got some time. Okay. Well, we appreciate you taking some time out of your writing schedule to talk to us and everyone here.
Thank you.
So thank you very much.
No, thank you so much for having me, and let me know in this post. I'd love to share it to my audience.
Absolutely, we will. We'll follow up with you.
Yeah.
Let you know when everything's starting to get promoted, and then when it's going to go live, and we'll let you see everything and how we're promoting you so that you can approve or not approve. We won't do anything out there without you.
Sounds good to me, and thanks again.
Thank you. Good
thank
talking
you.
to you.
Have a good
All
day.
right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.